Thank you so much. I'm presenting this work here on behalf of my graduate students. Jason and Jonah both have since graduated and couldn't be here. All right, this study presents findings of four-part of research. Two pertain to interviews and surveys with end users to understand how they prepare their devices when they're getting them repaired. And two parts require covert and deceptive interactions with repair service providers. Now, it may seem a little fishy because there is limited disclosure and there is deception without debrief. But please look at the paper. Primarily, we're studying commercial entities, and there are a lot of other reasons. We did get ethical approval for all parts of our study. Okay. So we deal with the service providers, so we categorize them into three major categories. We've got national service providers. These are big box stores that are subsidiary of a publicly traded organization across North America. We've got regional service providers. These are stores that are part of a larger chain that has stores across at least more than 2 cities. And then we've got local service providers. These are local to the city. They are operating out of a commercial location, which means they're not mom and pop shops operating out of basements, and they generally have a business license. Also, we considered only those who had 3.5 or higher rating on Google Maps. Electronic repair industry is a $19 billion industry annually, and it has been in news in the past. Both Apple and Best Buy have been in news for privacy violations committed by repair service providers. And every time an incident happens, we get these PR folks come in with some very nice positive statements. For instance, Apple released a statement in 2016 that when we learned of this egregious violation of our policies at one of our vendors in 2016, we took immediate actions and have since continued to strengthen our vendor protocol. So these are nice, positive statements, and the purpose of our study was to actually measure this empirically. So let's start with the first part. In the first part, what we wanted to do was we wanted to measure the existence and communication of these policies when you take the device for repair, and also what sort of information is collected from a person who's dropping this device for repair. Okay. For our repair service, we chose battery replacement for a specific device where battery replacement was very easy. You literally take 2 screws out of the back and then pop in new battery. Also, the system BIOS of this device gave all the necessary battery indicators, so you could argue that it was not necessary to actually log in to the system operating system. So for this part, we considered 3 national, 3 regional, and 5 local service providers. So first thing that we notice is, despite the researcher asking about it specifically, there were absolutely no policies that existed or that were communicated by the repair service providers to the end users. In terms of asking pins, and recall again, you could just pop out the battery, all service providers required credentials. The 3 national service providers would not even take the device if you were not to provide the PIN or password for the device. And 2 regional and 2 local service providers said that they would accept the device without credentials, but would not guarantee the quality of work, which is a very reasonable statement. Do note that 1 service provider completed the job without taking credentials. Devices are locked with pins or passwords, which are often reused. And when you're taking the device for repair, you often give your complete address and email and other details. National and regional service providers stored your PIN with other pieces of information into an electronic database, and they fail to provide any information as to who will have access to information and how long will it be stored for. When you take the device for repair, often you're required to sign them documents, and sometimes these documents may contain statements which do not seem right. For instance, here is a disclaimer that a person is supposed to sign where it says that this particular repair service provider will not treat data on your device as confidential and disclaims any agreement with you or other obligations to do so. So that was the first part. The second part was more interesting, where we wanted to measure what goes on behind closed doors. So when you drop off the device for repair, what happens? So this time we dropped rigged devices that were logging the actions of device user, whoever is using the device. So there is a very interesting tool called Microsoft Step Recorder, which logs every device click and every key stroke, and it presents you information in a very nice fashion, like in the screen shown over here. So this software was running behind the scenes surreptitiously and logging everything that was happening after the devices were dropped for repair. For repair service, we disabled the audio driver on the device, and the experimenters took it, asking them to fix the problem. And for this experiment, we chose 4 national, 4 regional, and 8 local service providers. We prepared 6 devices in total, and the goal was that often they store your devices in a central database. We did not take the same device to the same repair service provider again. These devices contained everyday usage data, browsing history populated over weeks, other normal data, as well as female-coded revealing pictures, which were taken from the subreddit Gone Mild. So essentially, it had no nudity in it. And the reason we chose female-coded revealing pictures is because if you look at the past privacy violations, they were generally committed against people who identified as females. All right, so here are the results for part 2. On the left side, you could see privacy violations categorized as access to documents, pictures, revealing pictures, finance folder, and then covering tracks as well in the end, which could be clearing the quick access logs or clearing logs in general. So for national service provider, we found one violation committed against a female experimenter. For regional, we found 1 violation against female, 1 violation against male. If you look at it, often these was after the pictures folder. They would just go and look at what was in the pictures folder or what was in the revealing pictures folder. For regional service provider, we also see that the data from the customer was copied off of the device onto USB drive. And then we see a lot more violations by local service providers, multiple against female, and for 1 male, we see that their browser history was accessed by the service provider. In terms of covering tracks, for 2 of the local service providers, we were just unable to collect any data off of the device. We speculate some reasoning in the paper. We also see that after committing these violations, the repair service providers in Windows, there is a quick access where you could see the files that were accessed recently. So those files were cleared. It's interesting to note that for national and regional service providers, we don't even see that those quick access files were cleared. It was not because they left track of it, but they were careful enough to actually open the folder, view thumbnails, and zoom into pictures and zoom out of pictures so as to not leave any tracks. So part 3 and 4, we started them after concluding the first 2 parts of the study. We advertised, recruited the participants. We had 100 total participants completing the survey, and 30 participants, we did interviews with them. There's not enough time to present the findings, but at a high level, I want to talk about 3 themes. First one is that privacy concerns from the participants did exist. 50% reported being reluctant due to privacy reasons. However, they would still went ahead and got the device repaired, at least a proportion of them. One reason was that the data that they had on the device, it was far more valuable and they didn't have backups. And the second reason is generally due to high cost of the device as provided by a quote there. 33% of the broken devices were not repaired due to privacy concerns, which is not good due to environmental reasons. We asked these participants if they noticed any safeguards from the service providers. 71% said that they did not notice any safeguards. Others reported some safeguards. Out of those, only 2 were somewhat reliable. 8 out of 22 said that the hard drive was removed before the repair, and 3 said the device was repaired in person. We also asked participants what sort of protection they used before dropping off the device for repair. 20% reported not using any protection at all. 5% also said that the device was too broken to do any sort of repair. And then other reasons were, some of those were reasonable, others were not as secure. In the paper, we talk about solutions. Something to understand is, depending on the variety of devices and the type of repair required, this is not an easy problem to fix. We can't say that people should encrypt their files. As security researchers, we know that doesn't happen. It's not easy for customers to move data to another device because often the device may contain a virus or the screen may be broken so they couldn't access the device. Customers cannot always see the repair process because it has a lot of logistical constraints. And you can't expect customers to take the hard drive out of the device because on a lot of these modern devices, the storage devices are soldered on the motherboard. So we propose a 3-pronged approach. The first one deals with the device manufacturers and operating system developers, where they should try to build a tamper-free logging utility. Samsung has recently introduced a repair mode on their device. Also, what would really help is having a better diagnostic coverage through system BIOS on these devices. Service providers need to do a lot more. First of all, they really need to move away from all access model where you take the device and you always need to provide your PIN or password. They should communicate what type of access is required and why. And then finally, service assessment through non-technical means, such as video recording with random audits, should always be used by these service providers. We also need the regulators to step in to ensure that such policies are consistent. Also, another food of thought is that FDA in the US provides guidelines for public health. You go to a restaurant, you see that these restaurants or food establishments are inspected and they have a certificate outside. Perhaps an approach like that is required for the electronics repair industry as well. When this paper was accepted, Louis Rossmann from Rossmann Repair Group did a 30-minute video to discuss this paper. And here is a very thought-provoking comment that he made, which says that it is very important to understand it doesn't matter if I have a privacy policy written down or not. You cannot see what is done behind closed doors. This is a trust system. If you do not trust us, you should avoid giving us the password to your disk, encrypt your disk, or not give us it at all. It's that simple. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the great talk. I have a quick question with regards to, say, the modern versions of Windows, where your user password to the computer is very frequently also your whole Microsoft identity. Did you see or log any cases where technicians looked at data that was off device using the credentials that would have been provided to them to log in?
No. We didn't see any. Also, something to note is we used a Windows 10 machine, so this study was conducted in the past, and they didn't have those connections.
It seems like the tamper-proof logging utility that you mentioned would be a privacy risk. How would you deal with that?
Could you elaborate more? How is it a privacy risk?
So if somebody can view the contents of the tamper-proof logging utility, they now have a perfect record of everything that you've done.
So it is from law enforcement perspective, but if there is a way to enable and disable it right before you're doing the repair service, getting the repair done, if you could enable it very much like the repair mode, I feel like that would be helpful. And in the paper, we do discuss that these are not foolproof measures. Each of these have a disadvantage. We kind of discuss those in the paper.
Thanks.
Really fascinating work. I'm very curious if from the interviews, any of the users reported any negative experiences, maybe as a result of dropping off their devices to these facilities, maybe because they handed their password and it's reused somewhere else, and something happened because of that?
So we did created these devices. So all of these devices were the experimenter devices. If you're asking from the user study, we did ask that. The unfortunate answer was that a lot of people said that they wouldn't even know if any privacy violation was committed. So they asked us, in fact, that how would you tell any privacy violation was committed?
Thank you.
Any additional questions? If not, thank you.
Thank you.